Om Namah Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaya Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamiti Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtike. So continuing with the discussion on Prabhupada Lilamrita by Srila Das Goswami, Chapter 44, and this book distribution marathon, Radha Damodar party, description of all these incidents are going on. Srila Prabhupada showed special interest in the Radha Damodar party and approved loans from the BBT for the purchase of more buses, thus creating a Sankirtan army traveling in renovated Greyhound buses. So much money was flowing in for BBT. The Prabhupada bought buses. They're not that cheap, expensive buses. By the end of 1974, the Radha Damodar party had 3 buses, vans, and numerous men. Prabhupada called the buses moving temples, and he urged the Radha Damodar devotees to continue their program with certainty that they were pleasing Lord Chaitanya. I'm glad that you have understood the importance of my books, Prabhupada wrote. Therefore, I'm stressing it so much. Let everyone take these books. Srila Prabhupada encouraged the Radha Damodar party to expand to hundreds of buses and thus fulfill the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bring Krishna consciousness to every town and village. When a tight transcendental competition arose between Los Angeles Temple, Tripurari's BBT party, and the Radha Damodar party, Prabhupada watched and approved it with pleasure. So there was competition, who can do more books? Another party forming in 1974 was the BBT Library Party. It began with Hridayanand Goswami sending some brahmacharis from his traveling party to visit prestigious universities in New England. The men attempted to sell entire sets of Srila Prabhupada's books to the professors, and even in the first attempts, they met with great success. Srila Prabhupada had long cherished this idea, and even before coming to America, he had gone to libraries in India with copies of his Srimad Bhagavatam first canto. By his efforts in New Delhi, the United States Library of Congress had obtained copies of those early volumes. Now his desire to see his books placed in all the US libraries and universities was becoming a reality. Within a few months, professors began writing favorable reviews, and some even ordered proper books for the college courses. I very much like this program of the standing orders, Prabhupada wrote. Try to increase it up to 50,000 such orders from the libraries. See, I mean, that 70s was really great for book distribution. Another party that formed in 1974 was Namhatta, a group of brahmacharis led by 2 sannyasis. The Namhatta party would travel and distribute books, donating the profits towards Srila Prabhupada's projects in Bombay, Mayapur, and Vrindavan. When Srila Prabhupada became ill for several weeks in September of 1974, the book distribution reports were his best medicine. Whenever I get reports of my books selling, he wrote to the library party, I feel strength. Even now in this weakened condition, I have got strength from your report. And during the same illness, he wrote to Rameshwar. Regarding book sales figures, please endeavor in this way. This is the only solace of my life. When I hear that my books are selling so nicely, I become energetic like a young man. Srila Prabhupada recovered his health, and by the end of 1974, his BBT was also in extraordinary health, with the temples again competing in a furious Christmas marathon. In America, the BBT reported to Prabhupada that approximately 387,000 hardbound books had been sold during the year, a 60% increase over the previous year. And almost 4 million Back to Godheads had been sold, an 89% increase. The American BBT sold the individual temples a total of 6.6 million pieces of literature, a 60% increase. Can we imagine these numbers? Such news made Srila Prabhupada become energetic like a young man, and Prabhupada and his book distribution movement headed into 1975 with all signs of increasing, doubling and tripling the already astounding figures of 1974. Srila Prabhupada had created his Bhaktivedanta Book Trust in 1972 as an independent entity to ensure that his books could continue being produced and distributed. The BBT would operate exclusively for the benefit of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and yet it could exist independently. So this was another thing that Prabhupada did. He created the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. It's separate from ISKCON. It's for the benefit of ISKCON, but it exists and it operates independently. So that, the accounting and everything can be taken care of separately. And for book distribution or book sales, BBTs, Prabhupada had just two rules. Whatever profit comes from book distribution or sales of his books, 50% should go to BBT for more production, more printing, and 50% for temple construction. That time, that was the rule. And book distributors, they asked, how will we survive? Prabhupada, you figure it out. Because it takes money. To run the buses, to take care of devotees, it takes money. But somehow they did, they managed. The trust document stated that the trustees should divide the money from the sale of books to ISKCON temple into two funds, one for printing books and one for purchasing ISKCON properties and building temples. Prabhupada believed that if this 50-50 formula were followed, Krishna would assure the success of ISKCON. Repeatedly, he would refer to this formula in conversations and letters, even in his purports on Srimad Bhagavatam. And this kind of book distribution, it just never happened before, never ever in the history. We never heard of that this kind of book distribution could go on. Srila Prabhupada gave his BBT trustees authority to make printing plans, and the trustees would then consult him for approval. He would set the standards and guidelines for his BBT trustees to follow. Only after consulting him could the institute changes. And to changes, Prabhupada was particularly averse. He would choose the book size, determine the artwork, and make suggestions about the size of a particular printing, about shipping policies, about sales to temples, almost about every aspect of the BBT's publishing activities. Even when certain temples did not remit their payments to BBT, Prabhupada would become involved. Sometimes payments would come later. It is not good if such big temples, so setting the example for the whole society, do not pay their bills. This is most irregular. I'm trying to retire from the administrative affairs. But if the presidents and GBC men make such disturbances, then how can I be peaceful? Things should be maintained automatically, then it will be peaceful for me. He was a strict manager. According to Vedic instruction, he said, fire, debt, and disease should never be neglected. They must be extinguished by all means. Yes, that's a saying. So fire, debt, and disease should be taken care of, extinguished, or just get rid of them immediately. So, well, these days, fire and disease, people do worry about, but debts, who cares? Even if they've taken money, loan or something, they don't want to pay it back. Just like there is a saying, Haribo, there's a saying, I had my money and I had my friend. I loaned my money to my friend. I asked my money from my friend. Now I don't have my money or my friend because they don't want to pay back. That's Kali Yuga mentality. Srila Prabhupada saw book distribution as, among other things, the basis for an economically sound ISKCON. Other businesses could also operate, but book selling was the best, for it combined preaching with a good source of income, as he wrote to one of his temple presidents. I'm very encouraged by the report of how nicely our books are being distributed. This is our main business all over the world. If you give full attention to this, there will never be any shortage of funds. There will never be any shortage of funds. So all we have to do just follow Prabhupada's instructions. And on another occasion, regarding the society's leaders emphasizing business, you should understand what's the meaning of business. Business means to help the preaching. Preaching needs financial help. Otherwise, we have no need for business. So far as I understand, our book business is sufficient to support our movement. Srila Prabhupada also oversaw all BBT loans to temples. Any GBC secretary or temple president requesting a loan would have to approach him. In 1973 and 74, he granted sizable loans for building, purchasing or improving temples in Dallas, Hawaii, Sydney, Chicago, and Vancouver. He also granted a loan to the Radha Damodar party for buying traveling temples or buses, and one to South America for printing books. Kirtanan Maharaj automatically received a $50,000 loan each year for new Vrindavan. But Prabhupada would deny money requests for projects he considered inconsistent with the purposes of the BBT. On November 6, he wrote to Rameshwar, "No, we cannot loan BBT money for any other purpose than what is mentioned in the BBT agreement. These other loans for cows, equipment, and restaurants must be repaid, and no other loans, either other than for publishing and temple construction, can be granted." Beginning in 1974, Srila Prabhupada utilized the BBT profits for constructing his main temples in India, Vrindavan, Mayapur, and especially Bombay. Ramesha informed the devotees of this special function of the BBT. Srila Prabhupada is personally overseeing all the Indian programs and spending. If 1 rupee is misspent, Srila Prabhupada becomes disturbed and chastises the devotees mercifully. This money is earned by the sweat of many devotees, so why you are not careful? Srila Prabhupada wanted to see our Vrindavan temple, Shri Krishna Balram Mandir, completed by Janmashtami. Prabhupada wanted to establish a Mayapur temple as well. One interesting note in this connection is that in India, I've been told that 10 paisa purchases 1 brick. 10 paisa means US 1 cent. Just think, every penny you collect may buy 1 brick in India. Every penny counts towards these transcendental goals. So this was Prabhupada's transcendental accounting. And see how much he is involved in management of everything, besides writing purports at night. The whole day he would be busy with all his administration work. And no emails, no phone calls, all by handwritten letters. We can't even imagine this kind of management. And that too, Prabhupada was 78 years old. And he's still working so hard. And again giving instruction that every penny counts. But at the same time, yes, I mean, the devotees were selling books, collecting funds. At the same time, wanted to make sure nothing is misspent, nothing is wasted. These places in India, Prabhupada wrote, are spiritually potent. By establishing temples in Mayapur and Vrindavan, we assure that the purity of our movement will be kept intact. In October of 1974, Srila Prabhupada wrote to Hansaduta, his GVG secretary for Germany, "Whenever there is any publication in any language, it enlivens me 100 times." Publication means they were translating Prabhupada's books in local languages and then printing. BBT was printing those books and distribution was going on. Although Srila Prabhupada's order from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was to preach and publish in the English language, he had expanded that order to include all the languages and countries of the world. My first concern is that my books shall be published and distributed profusely all over the world. Srila Prabhupada had written to one of the first devotees in Europe in 1972. Prabhupada wrote always in English, but ever since 1968, when ISKCON had first began spreading to other countries, he had been talking of printing his books in foreign languages. And if I'm not wrong, I think now all his books are printed and distributed in, I think, 70 languages all over the world. When in 1972, a German edition of Bhagavad Gita, Haribo? When in 1972, a German edition of Bhagavad Gita had been printed, Srila Prabhupada had written Hansadutta, "You have done the right thing by printing Bhagavad Gita in German language. I very much appreciate that you have done this great service." By 1973, Sankirtan parties had been traveling throughout Germany, distributing several hundred copies of Bhagavad Gita a week. Hansadutta had promised that he would translate one book a month into German. And when in the fall of 1974, Prabhupada heard of 6 recently printed German translations, he replied, "This is very happy news for me. Thank you. Overflowed Europe with German books." Srila Prabhupada said that whenever he published a book, he felt that he had conquered an empire. His books were the basis of the spiritual revolution that would eventually change humanity and save it from the pernicious effects of the age of Kali. Produce voluminously Spanish language literature, Srila Prabhupada requested. When Hridayanand Goswami had become the zonal leader for South America, Srila Prabhupada had instructed him to emphasize printing and distributing books above opening temples. I also was printing even before I had big temples in the USA. Prabhupada had written, "So you may follow the footsteps of the previous acharyas." So, emphasize printing and distributing books, and the Spanish books. And Hridayanand Maharaj did amazing distribution, and his team, amazing distribution in Spanish in South America. Hridayanand Goswami had organized a Spanish VBT in Mexico and had made book distribution his priority. Even in 1974, when the Spanish VBT was ready to print translations of Srimad Bhagavatam's first volume, Bhagavad Gita and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada wrote, "By printing these books of our Krishna conscious philosophy in so many different languages, we can actually inject our movement into the masses of persons all over the world, especially there in the Western countries, and we can literally turn whole nations into Krishna conscious nations." So this was his thought. When 100,000 copies of Spanish Back to Godhead were printed, Srila Prabhupada wrote, "Now give them to everyone." Spanish book distribution became the second largest in the world, next to America. And there was a fierce competition between Hridayanand Maharaj's party and Tamal Kush Maharaj's, Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party in book distribution. And yes, once Tamal Kush Maharaj said in one class, then he had given BBT for marathon, Christmas marathon. So he gave a check, advance check to BBT, a blank check, and told them, whatever Hridayanand Maharaj's party money he gives, you just, I don't know, you just add $1,000 to it and present my check. It will be cleared. There's so much of competition and confidence was also there. And regarding Prabhupada's books in different languages, once when I was in Gurgaon, I got a call from district collector, DC, or district magistrate of Gurgaon. Because I had gone to him many times for some work, for some permission here and there, so he knew me. So he called, he said, if you remember, 2000, it must be 2016 or 15, something like that. French president was invited by Modi ji, and he was going to go, there is a solar project to manufacture solar panels on the road between Gurgaon and Faridabad, the hilly tract. So Modi ji was going to take him there for him to inaugurate that project. So the request came from PM office to DM of Gurgaon that we need to give gift of Bhagavad Gita to French president. So arrange. So the DM called me. He said, I got this request and I only know ISKCON has French Bhagavad Gitas. So please arrange. And he said, whatever money is required, we'll pay you. I said, okay. I called BBT India, Mumbai. They said, we don't have French. I said, I called Mayapur, Vrindavan. We don't have French. Now what to do? And DM is asking me, he's not going to take no for an answer. Even if I have to fly to France and come back, I have to provide these books. So, but then I remembered Mauritius was a French colony. And we have so many Mauritian devotees in Delhi. I called Raga Pandit Prabhu. I said, this is a request. And it was short time, like next week or so. I said, I want one box of French Bhagavad Gitas. I don't care how you arrange. I'll pay you whatever it is. So he called Mauritius temple, Mauritian temple in Mauritius. He said, we need this French Bhagavad Gita box. So what happened? They had one lady who used to come to the temple, and she was an air hostess. And she was flying from Mauritius to India on a routine flight. And they asked her to take the box because air hostess, they can take without any problem. They can take anything. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot, not a full, not a big consignment. It's one box. So she agreed. So she brought the box from Mauritius to Delhi, and I got it picked up from Delhi airport, brought it to Gurgaon temple, and I sent it to the DM, and I said, just keep it. You don't need to pay for it. It's my service. And he said, I just wanted few. I said, you give it to French president, and there must be so many people accompanying him from France. So give it to everybody, no problem. And he was so happy. He said, only you could arrange all this. I said, no, only Krishna could arrange. So these things happen. Well, French Bhagavad Gita didn't have here in India, but it got arranged. And he was, DM was very happy, very happy. Modi ji will be really happy when, because Modi ji, and yeah, the request came from PM office to Chief Minister office. Chief Minister called DM office. And they were like, yes, they will be very, very happy today. So only the ISKCON could do it. There's no other organization who has Bhagavad Gitas in every language or the other spiritual books. Bhagwan, Srila Prabhupada's representative in Southern Europe, had been printing in French and Italian. And as early as December 1972, he had printed Prabhupada's Easy Journey to Other Planets in French. By the beginning of 1974, 3 parties in France were distributing daily 1,000 books. Daily 1,000 books, including a French Bhagavad Gita as it is. Already Bhagwan had printed the first Italian Back to Godhead, and a French Sri Ishopanishad was forthcoming. Wherever devotees went, they knew the program was to chant Hare Krishna, follow the regulative principles, and arrange for printing and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. When the first devotees had reached South Africa, they had proceeded just according to Srila Prabhupada's desire, and he had replied to them, your report is very encouraging to me, that you distributed 110 Gitas in 2 days in Cape Town. Srila Prabhupada often thought of having his books printed in Russian, and he wrote to Minister of Education and Culture in USSR, suggesting they publish a translation of the ancient classical Vedic literature, namely Bhagavad Gita, as already published by the famous London publishing house of MSS Macmillan Company. He also talked with his disciples about printing Russian translations in America. So we can only imagine Prabhupada's happiness and the enthusiasm of devotees of printing in different languages and then distributing, going out to distribute these books. Okay, I guess we can stop there. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Nice
Okay.
class, Prabhuji. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
You are safe and
Hare
wonderful. Hare Krishna. Jai
Hare
Shri Krishna.
Krishna. Jai Shri